Um, Hi. Hello, everyone. It is great to see this many people in the room here and this many people on Zoom also. Um, yeah, just love seeing everybody's faces in real life and virtually. And I'm so happy today that you guys have given me the opportunity to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart, actually almost as near to and dear to my heart as Zen, maybe not quite as much, but almost. And that is the topic of sleep. I think Dan asked me to talk about sleep today for two reasons. Number one, because I know it came up in last week's Dharma talk, discussion about dreaming and the dream state and kind of levels of consciousness around wakefulness, being asleep and being awake, both metaphorically and in terms of Zen and Zen practice. So I'm a little bit of a part two on that conversation. I am actually going to dig much more into the science of sleep and what is actually happening in your brain and in your body when you're sleeping. Um, Interestingly enough, it's actually very related to a lot of the science that happens when you're meditating, also. And so I'm going to discuss how kind of those two are interwoven together. I'll talk about my journey with sleep, and then I'm going to finish it up by talking about ways to sleep better, which is something that everyone also always seems to be interested in. So I'll go over some of that too. And then, of course, we'll have open discussion at the end. Um, so I guess I want to kick things off with why am I so interested in sleep? So some of you may know, but most of you probably do not know that I am a co-founder of a technology company called Sleep Space that creates all different types of tech to help people sleep better. Our main app is called Sleep Space. It's for iPhone right now, but it's going to be for Android soon. And it's a way for you through your phone or through a wearable, if you have one, to track how you're sleeping in order to improve your sleep. Another big project that we're working on right now is actually a project to help clinicians help people who really have trouble sleeping sleep better, and kind of the interplay between the clinician and patient. So I do a lot of thinking about sleeping all the time, and especially in the past 2 years. And it's funny how I ended up working in the area of sleep, because I've always been super passionate about like consciousness raising, is what I would call it. I started Zen practice in 2007, I believe, and even before that, I was a psych major. I was just constantly trying to figure out, like, how does this crazy thing work up here? How do we control it? What's going on? Um, and so so I was working in tech for like 20 years, been doing software design, and which was a little boring for a while, but over the past 10 years, it's gotten actually very interesting, because we basically are using tech for everything that we do in life. We have phones on us at all times. Tech is becoming more and more integrated into like our everyday world. So about 2 years ago, I said, I want to merge my two loves, the consciousness raising stuff that I really love, and my vocation, my career, doing software design. And so I was at a meetup called Transformative Technology, the Transformative Technology group of LA. And I really thought that I was going to work on like a meditation app. Like, actually applied at Headspace. I think I may have applied at Calm too. Like, I was like, that is my jam. That is 100% what I'm going to do. Headspace never even responded to my resume. I was like, I'm perfect for this. So I was like VP of design. I'm like, I'm perfect for that. Nope, not even a response. I forgave them, but I'm still a little bit like, Ugh. But anyway, so ended up at this transformative technology networking event, and the co-founder of Sleep Space said that he's been studying sleep his entire career. Basically has a PhD in sleep. It's like behavioral, like cognitive psychology, I think, but really sleep is his focus. And he's like, I have all these ideas, but I want to turn them into apps that people actually want to use and that are like enjoyable to use. And so that was the beginning of my foray into the realm of sleep. Um, so I want to start off by digging in a little more into the science of sleep and what is happening with your brain when we are asleep. So I'm gonna share my screen. Oh, and I also want to say if any questions come up along the way, please feel free to like chime in, raise your hands. We can keep it open. And then, of course, at the end, we'll discuss too. Okay, so let's first take a look at our brain waves. So here's an example of the 5 different types of brain waves, or at least the 5 biggest ones. Um, they are very pertinent to both meditation and to sleep. We're gonna skip the one on top for now because I'm gonna come back to that one. That one is my favorite, if you can have a favorite brainwave. The one right below is called beta. So beta waves is the type of waves that are in your brain when you're doing your normal everyday stuff. So when they call it the doing brainwave. You get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you put on your clothes, you make breakfast, you're working, you're driving. I would say that we basically spend like 95, maybe even like 98% of our time, minus sleep time, in this beta state. Um, when beta is, and you can even look at the nature of it, it's like this kind of really fast, kind of jumping around type of wave. Um, when you're anxious or have high anxiety, those waves get even faster. Like it's like the zip around type of brainwave. Personally, I think that smartphones, which is interesting because I work for a company that makes apps for smartphones, but I think that they have made our brain beta waves even worse. I don't know if you all have experienced this, but I feel like I have kind of ADD a lot, like I'm jumping around, and that comes from these really fast waves. So this next level down is called alpha, which is when you're more relaxed. So this is the beginning of what happens almost immediately when we start sitting. Because just by the nature of sitting, we have less sensory input that's coming into us. And so our brain waves even just automatically slow down. So kind of like if you take a child and put them in timeout for a minute, they're going to relax just because they have less stimulation coming in. So we all start off in alpha when we're sitting, and that's also when kind of when you're sitting, and sometimes you have kind of a story that's going on, and then you try to bring it back to your breath, and then you have kind of a story. That alpha is when you're still kind of still thinking a little bit, right, in that kind of story, linear type story. So theta is one level down. That's like one of the things that we're really going for in meditation, which is an even slower brain wave. And this wave is the point. I know Dan, you and Chalet had a little dialogue last week about how sometimes we lose our sense of time when we're sitting. That's when you've reached theta. Um, that's also the wave that you have when you're in creative flow. So for me, a lot of times if I'm working on a design, I'll lose like an hour and a half and I'll just be fully in it. When you sit down on your cushion and 20 minutes goes by in 1 minute, you've reached the level of theta wave, which is an even slower brain wave. Most people find theta to be very pleasurable, like people like that sense of, it's almost like a sense of losing yourself, or like you like lose identity for a minute there. And then delta, this one on the bottom, is the one that comes up during deep sleep. You're in some of the other brain waves during sleep, but delta is the slowest brain wave, and that happens in your deepest level of sleep. We'll get more into that in a minute. But here's a super interesting thing about brain waves, going back to gamma, the one at the very top. So gamma, in general, happen in short bursts. They'll be 2 or 3 seconds long in your brain wave patterns. Gamma feels like having an insight. It feels like the feeling you get when you're like, oh, yes, aha. Or like if you're in the shower and you're like, oh, I figured out the answer to this problem. Or, oh, I remember that thing that I'd forgotten. Gamma also occurs when there's a culmination of senses. So for example, when you bite into an apple, big fresh apple, that feeling that you get like, oof. If you kiss your love or your puppy or something, it's that feeling of, oh, it's kind of like a sense of like insight and wonder and appreciation and gratitude and joy, kind of like all in one thing. So gamma waves are most likely to occur when your brain is relaxed. So this is another reason why people meditate, because when you can slow down into alpha or theta, you're more likely to have a burst of gamma, which is why when people are sitting, even when you're in the shower, people tend to come up with ideas. This is also what's happening. These like alpha and theta waves are also what's happening when you're falling into sleep and when you're coming out of sleep. And so a lot of people will have creative insights or these bursts of gamma waves while they're falling asleep or while they're waking up in the morning. Or if you nap in the middle of the day, sometimes you have these kind of spikes of ideas that come to you. Um, I had no idea this was even a thing. Most people don't know it's a thing. But when I was in design school, I used to take naps in order to get creative insights. Like if I got really stuck on something, I would take a nap during the day and then ideas would come to me sometimes, sometimes not. Um, so taking a nap and or meditation, because meditation again kind of gets you into these alpha, theta, towards delta, are both used in order to spur the production of gamma waves. So to spur kind of a creative insight. So it's interesting, and this kind of fully came together in my brain as I was like reviewing the brainwave stuff to go over with you guys today. How really like meditating and meditating and sleep are almost like a continuum of the same thing. Like and I understand why. So wait, let me back up. So if when you're meditating, you are training your brain to be more still, to be more quiet or calm, ideally for spikes of gamma or just to be relaxed. Um, Training yourself to sleep or getting good at like relaxing your brain in order to fall asleep is really kind of a continuum of going down the same path. It's all in the context of getting facile with our minds, being able to calm ourselves, quiet ourselves, get to a place of insight, and then being able to come back out. Um, Another fascinating thing about gamma waves is that there was a study done by neuroscientists on what they called Olympic level meditators. So these are people who have meditated 12,000 or more hours in their lifetimes. So 12,000 was the number they used. Well, who decided that was Olympic level? I don't know. But anyway, so they went to Nepal, and I think they found some monks who are actually at a monastery who do lots of sitting all day, every day. Hooked them up to some EEGs and probably even fancier brain stuff. And what they saw was really, really remarkable. They were seeing extended periods of gamma waves. And so, if you think about what gamma is, it's insight, it's the culmination of senses, it's a sense of wonder, it's gratitude, it's love. It's as if they could see the science of enlightenment. Like they were had these sustained levels of feeling and of experiencing enlightenment, which I just like that like blew my mind when I read that, because it's like, oh my gosh, this is actually a thing. Being awake or like having that level of like brain functioning can actually be measured. Um, so anyway, so that's okay. So that's brainwave stuff. Any comments or any questions about brainwave stuff so far? Okay, so I'm gonna now move into a little more. Oh, Dylan. Oh, go ahead, Dylan.
Uh, I don't know if the quick question. I was in this skilled nursing facility, and this psychologist visited, and she said like to go to sleep to put on my iPhone a certain wave. Do you know which one of these you're supposed to listen to?
Okay, so I know what most likely what she was having you listen to is called. Well, it could have been a Hertz tone because there are certain tones that specific tones that can help you sleep better. I think one is 528. There's a couple different ones, but I'm guessing, especially if you had headphones, that she was having you listen to something called binaural beats,
Yeah,
which
that's it. But
there's
she
binaural beats.
mentioned a certain wave too. I
It
don't remember which one.
I would imagine that it brings you down from like alpha to theta to
Okay.
delta. I don't know if exactly which one of these it would be, but what that is, binaural beats, is that you have in one ear a slightly different frequency than the other ear, and it actually causes your waves to kind of causes them to lower.
Okay.
Uh, you can do a similar type of thing with haptics, with like a buzzing your wrist slightly lower rate than your heart rate in order to slow down your heart, which is connected to your breathing and connected to your Yeah, or just breathing too. These are kind of all different ways to do the same thing. But very cool, Dylan. Yeah, did it work?
Yeah, it worked. Yep.
Oh, nice. Okay, good. Yeah, I love binaural beats. I listen to them a lot when I'm sleeping, but you got to wear headphones, and so it's a little, you got to make sure that's comfortable. But they're great. Cool. Yes. Go ahead, Bill.
I'm looking for two of my favorite states, not because I like them, but because they're popular in my mind. One is depression, and the other is anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Can you repeat the question so people can hear?
Um, Go ahead. Me or Bill?
You.
Okay, so Bill was asking about the brain waves. Said he was looking for two states that are interesting to him. One is anxiety and one is depression.
I didn't say interesting.
Or you said you're present. You're very present to them. Got you. Totally get it.
I'm not fascinated with them.
Yeah, yeah. I will say this. I'm not an expert, but I do know that anxiety is high beta. When your beta waves are jumping around really fast, that is an anxious state. Depression, I don't know.
I don't think of that as problem solving.
Yeah, well,
I do see it as a source of creativity.
So, first off, these kind of what's written here on the right is a pretty generalized. A lot of times our brainwaves are kind of bouncing around in different places. I know that beta, if it's particularly fast, that tends to be anxiety, but in just like a really, it's kind of like the Makugio, like fast but not too fast is like the way you want it to be in order to be in a good problem solving state. And we shouldn't think, yeah, beta is definitely not negative if I made it sound that way. It's not always anxious. Like a lot of times we really do need to be making decisions. I mean, we're doing a million things at once in our lifestyle these days. And so beta is actually extremely useful. But it can be anxiety, either the cause or effect of anxiety if it's too much. And one side effect is people having the feeling that they can't turn it off. They can't turn off their brains, which is why people do things like meditate and yeah. What's that?
Drink.
And drink, actually, absolutely too. There's a lot that drink or smoke weed, or there's a lot of things. Yeah.
So maybe put it on gallery view and you can see if anybody else has something. And Sharma might have a view on the depression brainwaves.
Oh, she might. Yes. Okay. Got it. There we go. Any other thoughts or any other questions? Sharma, you have anything to add?
I have a question. I've been told and have practiced the idea that if I start to feel tired while I'm meditating, straightening your spine is really helpful. And I just wonder if that's connected neurologically in any way.
That's a great question. I would imagine it. I don't know the answer to that. I would imagine it has something to do with it. Dan, you have an answer? Oh, Lori?
I think about Kundalini training in terms of vibration. Certain.
Let's unmute this one.
I'm not an expert, but but I have taken some Kundalini training, and the vibrations of this too. The vibrations that we can create for our spine are very important for helping us to relax and to spark energy. So I think it is definitely a nerve center for that kind
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other thoughts?
Take a nap.
Take a nap. Well, so napping is actually a fantastic way to kind of reboot your brain. And at my co-founder Dan Gartenberg, who his pseudonym is Dr. Snooze. That's what he calls himself because he's so into sleep. We're actually allowed to nap at any time we want. Even when we were meeting in person, napping was like encouraged on the job because he really thinks of it, and we'll get into this a little bit more when we get into the kind of the benefits of sleep, but he really thinks of it as helping you be more productive. No, that like it's like better take a 20-minute nap, wake up with refreshed and maybe a new idea or two, as opposed to slogging through the day on your computer drinking coffee. He saw it as being something that was very, very healthy for your brain, and something that you should definitely never stop yourself from
I
doing.
disagree. Coffee.
I mean, coffee is a nootropic also. Coffee is actually good for focus too. So maybe it's just finding the balance.
Lori can tell you there's never enough coffee.
Okay, I feel that way too. I love coffee.
Tension Roshi and I are in complete league with that.
Good.
Path to enlightenment.
Path to enlightenment coffee. Okay, so I want to quickly do a little bit more sciencey stuff. I want to talk about the different stages of sleep. So this person went to bed very late. They went to bed at 1:17 a.m. and got up at noon. So ignore the numbers on the top. But oh, you can't share. Oh, I'm sharing, not sharing. Hang on. Okay, so this is a diagram that I think probably a lot of you have seen before, of the different sleep stages that we go through during the night. So there are 4 different sleep stages, sometimes 5, sometimes because sometimes they get into more kind of granular stages. But in general, there's kind of like four different ones. And you cycle through them 4 to 5 times in the night. And the stages are this like kind of wakeful or drowsiness state, REM sleep, light sleep, and deep sleep is the deepest. So an interesting thing about, they call this a sleep architecture diagram. A thing that's interesting about this is it starts to kind of debunk some of the myths that we have about sleep, and that is number one, that just because you're getting more sleep, you're getting better sleep. That is definitely not true. Your restfulness actually has a lot more to do with whether or not you have completed sleep cycles and gotten enough deep sleep in your sleep, and also REM sleep, than total sleep time. So you may have noticed, say one night you drink a bunch of wine, say, and you end up sleeping 10 hours, but you still wake up tired. And that could be because wine or alcohol tends to interrupt your REM sleep and can also stop you from getting into deeper phases of sleep. Another thing is, and this is something that I learned when I started working at Sleep Space, I would sleep with my window open a lot, and because I like the cool breeze, and cars would go by a lot, and it would pull me out of lighter phases of sleep. Now you notice you can't go from wake directly into deep. You have to pass through REM light in order to get down to deep. If you're being interrupted by something like sound or light that you're not even aware of in these middle phases of sleep, you will never achieve the deep level of sleep, which is the most restorative. So that was one of the best things I learned about at Sleep Space, is that monitoring the sound and the light in the room is very important, because you may not think that it's bothering you, but it could be. And this could even be something like a clock. They don't really exist anymore. Remember when clocks used to flash if you didn't set the time right? Or even things like on televisions and stuff, sometimes there's little lights that flash. Believe it or not, but that type of stuff could actually be interrupting your sleep. And it's because back in like caveman times, when we would sleep out in the woods, there could be like predators that would come around. If there was any sort of flash of light, maybe it was a reflection on an eyeball or something like that, we have some alertness around that. So when I think about my sleep environment, I think of it as I would a Zendo. I make sure that like light is controlled, sound is controlled. It's also recommended to keep the temperature cool, which is a little bit of a misnomer too. A lot of people think you want it to be warm and cozy, but if it's too warm in the room, that can also wake you up. They say like around 70, like a little bit cooler than what is comfortable. You still have blankets and stuff, and you shouldn't be shivering, but a cooler temperature is also good for you too. And then also keeping your space clean. So this is something, like, believe it or not, that sleep clinicians and like therapists will say is like, make your room a very sacred space in order for you to sleep. And again, I love that analogy, because it's like, oh, I also have a sacred space where I meditate. This is just kind of one level after meditation, the sleeping level. So I super like that part of, they call it sleep hygiene. So here are the different phases of sleep. Now I want go move on to the next thing, which is the different phases of sleep and how the brain waves coincide with that. So, like I said, pretty much most of the different types of waves occur during sleep. Um, Theta, alpha occurs a little bit. Theta is mainly in the lighter stages of sleep. So that's interesting. Like that meditation state and the lighter stages of sleep have a lot of overlap. Like they're very similar to the same type of thing in terms of brain functioning. Delta is the slower one, and that's when you get into stage 3 and 4, which are the stages of deep sleep. Interesting thing about delta waves is you see they call them spindles. You have these kind of spikes in the way that the brain waves move, and they don't completely understand that. There's a lot of things they don't understand about sleep, but they think that one is it somehow stops you from waking up. I'm not sure how, but they think that has something to do with keeping you in that deep sleep. And then something that's pretty interesting down here is that REM sleep is very similar to alpha. So the way that your brain is functioning during REM is kind of like when you first start sitting. Like it's not quite beta. Your brain isn't quite running around as fast as you would during awake state. But it's like I think of it as like the story level. It's like when you're kind of slowly like thinking through stuff is what happens during REM. And I know, Dan, you mentioned last week there's some other interesting things that happen during REM sleep too. And one is that you're semi-paralyzed. So, and that's because your mind is really acting out stuff that you don't want your body to act out. And some of your senses are also dimmed, but not all of them. Like, I think it's really fascinating that if you hear a baby crying and you're a mom, if I hear my puppy crying, I will wake up, which is crazy. Like, he'll be all the way downstairs sometimes and I'll hear him. And you can also respond to your name too. So you can hear your name sometimes. So you're in this kind of a little bit of an in-between state there during REM. All right, how are we for time? Oh, it's already 10:34. Okay. I think what I want to do is talk a little. Well, I'll show you this one really quick because this is something that's important to know. So this is a chart of the sleep duration recommendations for different age groups. So you notice that newborns are the biggest. They say the average should be between 14 to 17 hours a day, so they should get a lot of sleep. Everyone knows that. And it kind of slowly gets to be less and less until your older age, which they're putting as 65 or above. I would put that like 85 or above as older, but anyway, that's an aside. But the thing that's interesting here is that there is a misconception. Some people think that when you get older, you need like really like significantly less. Like I've heard people say, oh, I only need 5 hours of sleep or 6 hours of sleep. It's very rare that someone needs less than 7 hours of sleep ongoingly. That doesn't mean that people don't do it. A lot of people do it. I know people that will get religiously 6 hours of sleep every night their whole lives, and that feels right to them. It is possible that it could be okay because it's different for everyone, but a good test is that if you sit down and you can fall asleep like immediately, it probably means that you're sleep deprived. So I had a friend of mine who he knew he only needed like 5.5 hours of sleep every night, but you put that guy in a chair and he would just fall asleep. And so I think the important thing is to really be in touch. Well, I would say this is my recommendation for what it's worth is it's important, I think, to allow yourself to sleep as much as you can. We live in a society where everyone sets alarms every morning to get up, and I used to do that. I mean, for 44, well, I guess it probably started when I was 12. So let's say for 34 years of my life, I had an alarm every morning because I wanted to make sure I was getting up on time. What we don't allow ourselves to do when we have that alarm that's waking us up every day is get the amount of sleep that is required for us and get in touch with what that natural amount of sleep is required for us is. So I think when I think about sleep more, like I start getting ready to bed even like an hour before I'm going to go to bed. I start to kind of let myself wind down. I get into bed ahead of when I think I need to fall asleep. I I kind of give myself this space around being able to sleep and then like waking up at a time that feels natural to me, and I feel like that has like just an overall restfulness has been a huge help in my life. So it's like, again, it's like your bedroom is the zendo. Treat the way that you sleep with some sacredness, right? Like allow yourself to have that. um, I know, even there's another common conception. This is something I remember Yoshin used to even say, is like that sleeping too much is like laziness, right? I would actually argue 150% opposite of that. Um, the more and more research they do on sleep, the more they learn that sleep essentially can help prevent almost all major illnesses. Giving your body that time to rest and recover, giving your brain the time to store memories, the time to process through emotion. The more they learn about sleep, the more they realize that it's just really, really good for you. And so I never feel bad about sleeping anymore. I mean, I used to always set the alarm so I could get up and go for a jog before I went into the office. And now if I skip my job, not my job, if I skip my jog and go straight into work, I don't feel bad about it. I'm just like, my body needed to do that. I'll jog later, you know? Not saying you shouldn't work out, but think of sleep as something that is like just as valuable to your body as eating right, as exercising, as having a positive attitude. It's just as important as all of those things. All right, I think there's a few more slides, but I think I'm going to stop the slides. And first ask any questions or thoughts right now. Go ahead, Winston.
Okay. What do you think about melatonin, and also what is the right amount of, I mean, if you were to incorporate exercise as well into this like routine, how would you do that?
Okay. Great question. So melatonin, great question. So it's interesting. There are a lot of different types of supplements that you can take in order to sleep. Oh, I'm unmuted. Yep. Melatonin is a very common one. It's highly recommended. Melatonin is different from a prescription sleep medication in that it actually doesn't suppress your brain waves or may force you to be more drowsy like some of the other ones do. It just gives a signal to your brain that it's time to go to sleep and doesn't do much more after that. Interestingly, I feel like melatonin makes me groggy, and I find that some people think it does and some people don't. So I only take melatonin if I really feel like I'm like, I can't, if I've been lying in bed for a while and I can't do it, then I'll take some melatonin. But I would recommend trying it. You can start with a little bit and then gradually increase and see if it works for you. I think I would recommend, in addition to that, I think one of the most important things in being able to sleep well is having a consistent bedtime and a consistent wake time. So the more you can be on the same sleep cycle, the better you're going to sleep 100%. This is a tough one for me because I tend to have a very my cycle just isn't all that regular. I mean, with some nights I stay up late and other nights I don't. Usually, depending on like activities that are happening. If I'm just home alone, I'll go to sleep pretty early. But that consistency can also be a big help. If you don't like melatonin though and you want to take something else, CBD has also been shown to be wonderful for sleeping. Magnesium is another one that's really good. And there's like 5 or 6 other ones too. I have a list that I can give you if you'd like, but I think those CBD and magnesium are the ones that have worked for me. Exercise and sleep, the only thing that I see repeatedly around exercise and sleep is try not to exercise within 3 hours of going to sleep, because it does make your body, you require kind of a time to relax before your body can fully rest. So that would be the only thing I have to say about that. Oh, I guess I do have one other thing to say. Your circadian rhythm, which I don't think I'm going to have time to get into today, but your circadian rhythm is dictated by the time that you wake up in the morning. And so there are 2 times during the day when you are at highest energy, both physical performance energy and mental performance energy. And it's about 2 or 3 hours after you wake up. And then you have a little dip in the afternoon. And then, actually, I better pull up this chart to make sure my numbers are right. I'll just do it real quick. hang on. Oops, I gotta share.
I think your timing's okay because we're talking
With you? Okay, good. Then I won't rush. Okay, I am sharing. Good. So we are seeing this. Good. So so this is an example of your.
We're not seeing it.
Oh, I'm not seeing it. Share screen. There we go. Okay. So this is an example of what's called your circadian rhythm or your circadian energy levels throughout the day, and this is both physical and mental energy. So when you wake up in the morning, in the first 1 or 2 hours of waking up, a couple important things. Number one, no big decisions, which I think most people usually do that. You kind of let yourself get into the day before anything happens. That's also a really good time to get some sunlight. Both for your mood and for your energy. I had started doing this without realizing it after I got my dog, because first thing I got to do is walk him in the morning, and I realized I was feeling more energetic in the morning. There is something about having like natural sunlight immediately when you wake up that makes a huge difference. If you have jet lag, if you're traveling to another country and you're trying to get on their clock, one of the most important things, get sunlight in the morning time over there, and you'll start training your circadian rhythm. So back to the exercise thing. So the time when it'll probably feel best to work out is going to be 1 to 3 hours after awakening. That's both for working out your brain or your mind, or if you have to be doing creative tasks, getting into flow. I do a lot of morning meetings right then, because if I'm leading the meeting, I feel like I'm really on during that time. In the afternoon, so this is kind of right after lunch, very common for most people. This is the time of siesta in a lot of cultures. Your energy wanes a bit. And with this circadian rhythm thing, something that really had an impact on me is that it's actually okay to have a dip in the afternoon. Like, I used to always be like, why am I tired in the afternoon? You're allowed. We go through different stages of having high energy or low energy. That's a great time to take a little nap. I mean, a 20-minute nap can really can really like boost your energy back up again if you have a schedule that allows for it. Second peak of the day, also another good time to work out, is a couple hours before dinner. And then if you do have trouble sleeping, that's afternoon is when you want to avoid caffeine. I'm a huge coffee drinker too. I love it. I don't ever really stop myself from drinking coffee. I don't think it affects my sleep. So, but if it does, then try to cut it off as best you can afternoon. And then this point at the end, the evening wind down. Another thing that I've learned from studying sleep is how important it is to give yourself some time to relax into sleep. I used to be the type of person that I was go, 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 and then it was lie down in bed and like, why can't I sleep? Why can't I sleep? Like, you need, like, a lot of people automatically like read before going to bed, even watching TV, although the blue light is not particularly good because it activates your nervous system. But watching a TV show that's not too stressful can also calm you down too. And then, of course, things like taking a bath and meditating is one of the best things that you can do before going to sleep. Back on the topic of meditating, so one of the things that they teach people that really have trouble sleeping, one of the things that they teach them and that they have them do is regular meditation. And the reason why is because meditation is the practice of slowing down your brainwaves. And that's what has to happen before you go to sleep. So I think it's wonderful that we all have a meditation practice already as part of our lives, because that means we're better sleepers than if we weren't, because we know how to slow down our minds, or we at least practiced it every day.